I'm just going to make a few brief remarks on missing persons. And it's quite appropriate that I talk now about that theme because I want to talk about a missing person, the missing person being Yun Bing, who last week died 3 months short of turning 70 after a prolonged period of illness. Yun was well known to many of you, and he indeed was present at the very first event of this series of conferences back in 2008 here in Brussels. He was a pioneer in the field of information and communication technology law, and he made a significant contribution to the development, the early development particularly, of principles for privacy and data protection both here in Europe and at a global level. He was a member of the committee set up by the OECD that eventually drafted and adopted its famous guidelines on protection of privacy and transported data flows back in 1980. And in that regard, I received the following words from Michael Kirby, who chaired that committee. Yun Bing was an outstanding member of that OECD expert group. That group of remarkable individuals drafted guidelines that have been highly influential in the global response to data flows and the protection of privacy. I honour Yun Bing as one of the founders of global law and policy on information technology. I was very proud to know him as a colleague and friend. End of quote. This is logistically a little bit difficult. I have a few photos of Yun. This photo was taken last autumn. I think it's quite a characteristic pose of Yun. He was an unassuming individual. He wasn't a person who put himself forward at the expense of others. Rather, he used himself to put others forward, in particular younger researchers, younger colleagues. And I certainly benefited greatly from that generosity. The picture, though, lies somewhat because at that stage he was very, very tired and struggling constantly with a concatenation of various illnesses that all came together and robbed him of life last week. Next slide. For his services to ICT law and policy generally, he was awarded a knighthood back in 1999, and this is a photo showing him proudly bearing his knighthood regalia. But as many of you know, he was not a man fond of pomp and ceremony. He was, as I said, a modest, unassuming individual who was much more pragmatically concerned with what matters, what really matters. He was also a Renaissance man. He had a work capacity that was not only irritatingly enormous, but also a breadth in the subject matter that he delved into. So while most of us here know him as someone who contributed to discourse on privacy and data protection, he had a finger in intellectual property, in legal information systems, in contract law, you name it, he was there. High and low, here and there, almost everywhere. He was also someone very active more broadly as a writer of science fiction. And this is a photo of him back in his much younger days, taken in 1969, when he was a budding science fiction writer. He did most of his science fiction in the early days with a colleague, Turo Gobringsvärd, who is there shown with the beard. Yun is without beard, although later he grew his characteristic handlebar moustache. This was a time, and this is a photo I think that shows his, not just his energy and vigor, but also his zest and sense of fun. And there are not many people who have on their CV a letter from Pan Am saying that you have a place on the first flight to the moon. This is a facsimile sent out in 1969. Yun Bing and Turoga had written to Pan Am saying, we've heard about moon travel and we'd like to be on the first flight to the moon, offered commercially, that is. And here's the reply from Pan Am in Norwegian, but it's to the effect of saying, we have reserved your places on a flight to the moon, 1969. The penultimate slide, I think, shows Yun as I like to remember him, someone with joie de vivre, with an infectious enthusiasm for most things, and a curiosity that was insatiable. And in his honour, my colleagues and I at the Norwegian Research Centre for Computers and Law have produced a book. It was originally going to be a Festschrift to be presented to him on the occasion of his 70th birthday on the 30th of April this year, but it has now become more a book in memory of his achievements, in memory of his remarkable joie de vivre. For those of you who want to put your name on the tabula memorialis and to order the book, you can do so at the following website, bingboeken.net/ENG for English. Thank you for your attention.